Hello, everyone. There's something fascinating about the people we respect the most. It's not their money, it's not their titles, it's not even their accomplishments. It's something much deeper, something that can't be bought or forced. The strongest leaders are not the ones who sit on the highest thrones or command attention with loud voices. They are the ones who walk the lowest paths, carrying the weight of responsibility with humility rather than arrogance. True leadership is not about dominance, it is about service. And the leaders who earn the deepest respect are the ones who put others before themselves. Look at history. The most admired figures were never the ones who sought power for its own sake. They were the ones who embraced responsibility, who understood that true leadership is not about standing above people, but standing with them. They walked among their people, not ahead of them. They knew that respect cannot be demanded, it must be earned. And the way to earn it is through selfless dedication. Yet there is a misconception in our world today. Many believe leadership is about status, about sitting in the highest seat, about making decisions that others must follow without question. But real leaders are different. They understand that their power is not a right, it is a responsibility. And that responsibility requires them to serve. It requires them to listen more than they speak, to act with wisdom rather than impulse, and to remain humble even in moments of success. Humility is not a weakness, it is the foundation of strength. A leader who lacks humility becomes blinded by their own importance. They stop listening, they stop learning. And the moment a leader believes they are above others, they begin to lose the respect of the very people they are meant to lead. True leadership means staying grounded even when the world tries to elevate you. Consider the greatest leaders throughout time. They did not lead with fear. They led with example. They understood that if they wanted people to work hard, they had to work harder. If they wanted people to believe, they had to embody belief. If they wanted loyalty, they had to show loyalty first. Leadership is not a title. It is a responsibility that is proven through action, not words. The strongest leaders walk the lowest paths because they know that power is fleeting, but impact lasts forever. When a leader is obsessed with control, they become a dictator. But when a leader is obsessed with serving, they become a legend. People do not follow those who demand obedience. They follow those who inspire them. This is why arrogance is a leader's greatest enemy. The moment a leader believes they are invincible, they become blind to their weaknesses. They stop growing. They stop listening to advice. They start making decisions based on ego rather than wisdom. And history has shown, time and time again, that the downfall of great leaders is never caused by external forces. It is caused by their own inability to remain humble. Walking the lowest path means embracing the truth that leadership is not about being the most important person in the room. It is about making sure everyone in the room feels important. It means choosing to serve rather than demand, to uplift rather than suppress, to listen rather than dictate. It is a path of patience, of wisdom, and of self-discipline. There is a reason why people naturally follow humble leaders. It is because humility breeds trust. When a leader is willing to admit mistakes, people respect them more, not less. When a leader is willing to give credit rather than take it, their team becomes more loyal, not less. When a leader is willing to do the work themselves rather than simply command others, their influence becomes unstoppable. The lowest path is not an easy one. It requires restraint when others seek glory. It requires wisdom when others seek attention. It requires putting others before yourself, even when it would be easier to seek personal gain. But in the end, it is the only path that leads to true, lasting respect. The strongest leaders understand that their strength does not come from titles, authority, or status. It comes from their ability to remain humble, to stay grounded, and to never forget that leadership is about service, not self-importance. And that is why the world remembers them, not for how high they stood, but for how low they were willing to go for the sake of others. The wisest minds never need to prove themselves because they understand that true wisdom is not about validation, it is about clarity. They are not driven by the need to be right, nor are they obsessed with convincing others of their intelligence. Instead, they move through life with quiet confidence, knowing that wisdom speaks for itself. The need to prove oneself is often rooted in insecurity, but those who are truly wise have nothing to prove because they already know their worth. In every conversation, in every debate, in every room, there are people who feel the need to assert their knowledge. They interrupt, they dominate discussions, they make sure everyone knows just how much they know. But what they fail to realize is that real intelligence is not measured by how much you say, it is measured by how well you listen. The wisest people do not waste their energy trying to impress others. They understand that wisdom is not about speaking the loudest, it is about understanding the deepest. There's a difference between intelligence and wisdom. Intelligence can be measured, displayed, and proven through facts and arguments. But wisdom is different. It is not something that needs to be shown off. It is something that is felt. People recognize wisdom not by the way someone talks, but by the way they think, act, and respond. The wisest minds do not seek approval from others because their validation comes from within. They do not fear being misunderstood because they know that time will reveal the truth. Those who constantly seek to prove themselves are often driven by ego. They want recognition. They want to be seen as the smartest person in the room. But wisdom has no interest in competition. A wise person does not need to win an argument to feel secure in their knowledge. They do not need to correct every mistake or call out every flaw. They understand that not every battle is worth fighting, and not every mistake needs to be corrected in the moment. Insecurity shouts, but wisdom whispers. The more someone feels the need to prove themselves, the more they reveal their own self-doubt. But the one who is truly wise is comfortable with silence. They do not rush to defend themselves when challenged. They do not force others to agree with them. They simply live in alignment with what they know to be true, and in time, that truth speaks for itself. The wisest people are also the ones who ask the most questions. They are not interested in proving what they already know. They are interested in learning what they do not. They understand that real wisdom comes from curiosity, not certainty. They do not assume they have all the answers, nor do they pretend to be the ultimate authority. Instead, they remain students of life, always seeking to understand more. There is a quiet strength in not needing to prove yourself. When someone is secure in their knowledge, they do not feel the urge to correct others just to appear smart. They do not need to insert themselves into every discussion to make their presence known. They simply observe, reflect, and speak only when necessary. And when they do speak, people listen, not because they are the loudest voice, but because their words carry weight. It takes wisdom to recognize that not everyone will understand you, and that is okay. The need to prove oneself often comes from the fear of being overlooked or underestimated. But wise people do not fear these things. They know that their worth is not determined by the opinions of others. They understand that being right is not as important as being effective, and that sometimes the best response is no response at all. The wisest minds never need to prove themselves because wisdom is its own proof. It does not need validation, recognition, or applause. It exists in the way they live, in the way they think, and in the way they treat others. While others waste energy trying to be seen as important, the truly wise remain focused on what actually matters: understanding, growth, and impact. And because of this, their influence lasts far longer than those who shout the loudest. Power and respect are not the same. One can be seized, forced, or stolen, but the other must be earned, cultivated, and given freely. Power can be taken in an instant through force, authority, or manipulation, but respect is something that no amount of force can demand. True respect does not come from a title, a position, or the ability to control others. It comes from character, integrity, and consistency. There have been many powerful individuals in history who commanded obedience but never earned true respect. Dictators, tyrants, and those who rule through fear may hold power for a time, but their influence fades the moment their control is weakened. Power built on fear is fragile, And the moment people find the courage to resist, it crumbles. Respect, however, is different. It is not given out of fear, but out of admiration. It cannot be stolen, only granted. And once it is earned, it lasts far beyond the presence of the individual who carries it. Power is external. It is given through position, wealth, or influence. It can be taken away just as easily as it is obtained. A person may rise to power overnight, but if they lack the qualities that inspire genuine respect, their power remains hollow. Respect, on the other hand, is internal. It comes from within, from the values a person upholds and the way they treat others. No one can take true respect away from you because it is not based on titles or authority. It is based on who you are. The difference between power and respect can be seen in how people react when authority is removed. A boss who leads through fear may have employees who obey their every command, but the moment they leave the room, their influence disappears. People may do what they are told, but they do not follow because they believe in them. They follow because they have to. But a leader who has earned respect does not need to demand loyalty. People give it willingly. Even in their absence, their influence remains. Their words and actions leave a lasting impression because they were not rooted in force, but in genuine leadership. Some chase power because they believe it will bring them respect. They believe that if they can control others, they will be admired. But control is not the same as admiration. Someone may fear you, but that does not mean they respect you. Fear and respect may sometimes look similar on the surface, but they come from entirely different places. Fear is temporary, respect is lasting. Fear disappears the moment power is lost, but respect remains long after power is gone. The most respected individuals are not always the ones with the most power. They are often the ones who choose to serve rather than dominate, who prioritize people over position, and who lead not by force but by example. They understand that while power can be used to impose authority, respect can only be earned through trust and integrity. They do not seek to control others, but to empower them. And because of this, they leave behind a legacy that power alone never could. Power is seductive. It gives the illusion of control, the feeling of superiority, the ability to dictate outcomes, but power without respect is empty. It may achieve short-term results, but it never builds anything meaningful. People will follow orders when they are forced to, but they will only go the extra mile for those they truly respect. Respect fosters loyalty, commitment, and trust, things that no amount of power can buy. The greatest leaders in history were not the ones who ruled with an iron fist, but the ones who led with wisdom and humility. They understood that power is temporary, but respect is permanent. That people may obey commands out of necessity, but they will only follow with their hearts when they believe in the person leading them. And that while power can be taken away in an instant, true respect endures for generations. Power fades, but respect lasts. Power can be overthrown, but respect is carried in the hearts of those who are influenced by it. A person who seeks only power will find themselves alone when it is gone. But a person who earns respect will never be forgotten, because in the grand scheme of life, it is not the power we hold that defines us. It is the way we treat others, the values we uphold, and the impact we leave behind. The loudest voices often hide the weakest foundations. The people who shout the most, demand the most attention, and insist on being heard are often the ones who lack real substance. They believe that volume equals strength, that dominance equals authority. But true power does not need to be loud. True strength is rooted in confidence, in wisdom, in the quiet assurance of knowing who you are and what you stand for. In every environment, whether in politics, business, social circles, or even personal relationships, there are always those who talk the most but say the least. They fill the air with noise, making sure they are the center of attention. But when their words are examined closely, they lack depth. They rely on exaggeration, on force, on overpowering others with sheer volume, because they do not have the foundation to stand on their own. But those who truly understand their position, those who are deeply grounded in knowledge and truth, do not need to raise their voices to be heard. Their presence, their actions, and their quiet confidence speak louder than any shout ever could. There is a reason why those who lack substance feel the need to be the loudest in the room. It is because they are compensating. They fear being questioned, being challenged, being exposed. So instead of inviting discussion, they overpower it. Instead of listening, they dominate. Instead of proving their point with logic, they force their presence with noise. But strength is not found in volume, it is found in the ability to remain steady even in silence. A weak foundation cannot hold weight. A house built on sand may stand for a time, but when the storms come, it collapses. In the same way, people who rely on loudness rather than wisdom may appear strong on the surface, but when real challenges arise, they have nothing to stand on. Their voices may have been loud, but their foundation was weak. And in the end, noise fades, but truth remains. Some of the most powerful leaders in history were not the ones who spoke the most, but the ones who spoke the most effectively. They did not waste words trying to impress others. They understood that true influence is not about saying more, but about saying what truly matters. They knew that wisdom does not need to announce itself. It simply exists, and those who recognize it will listen. And the loudness often disguises insecurity. People who are truly secure in themselves do not feel the need to prove their worth to everyone around them. They do not seek validation through volume. They do not force others to acknowledge them. They simply live in alignment with their values, and that in itself commands respect. But those who doubt themselves, who fear being overlooked, who are desperate for recognition, these are the ones who shout the loudest. They believe that if they can just be heard, they will be seen as important. But importance is not measured by how many people hear you. It is measured by how many people trust and believe in what you say. Silence, when used wisely, is more powerful than any speech. The ability to remain quiet in moments of chaos, to listen when others are speaking, to withhold words until they truly matter, these are the marks of a person with a strong foundation. They do not need to fill every space with their voice because they know that real influence is not about being the loudest, but about being the most authentic. History has shown that those who make the most noise are often the ones who fall the hardest. Their words, once so forceful, become empty when they cannot back them up with action. Their confidence, once so overwhelming, crumbles when tested by reality. But those who have built themselves on a foundation of truth, of wisdom, of quiet strength, they do not fall. They do not need to prove anything to anyone. They simply stand firm, unmoved by the storms around them. True greatness does not announce itself. It does not demand attention, nor does it seek validation from the world. Instead, it carries itself with a silent confidence that speaks louder than any words ever could. Those who are truly great do not need to prove their worth to anyone because they know who they are. They understand that their value is not in how much they are seen or heard, but in the impact they create, often without even trying. In a world where people are constantly seeking recognition, where success is often measured by visibility, and where noise is mistaken for influence, silent confidence stands apart. It is the quiet assurance of someone who has mastered their craft, who has done the work, and who no longer needs applause to feel validated. They do not seek to impress. They do not compete for attention because their focus is not on what others think. It is on becoming the best version of themselves. The greatest leaders, thinkers, and innovators in history were not the ones who shouted their greatness from the rooftops. They were the ones who worked relentlessly, often in solitude, refining their skills, building their knowledge, and letting their results speak for themselves. They understood that true strength does not come from words, but from action. It is not about making grand statements, but about living in a way that makes statements unnecessary. Silent confidence is powerful because it is rooted in self-awarenesses. It is the understanding that validation is not something to be chased, but something that naturally follows those who dedicate themselves to excellence. It is the ability to walk into a room without demanding attention, yet commanding respect simply by presence. It is the kind of confidence that does not seek to overpower others, but instead lifts them up because it is secure in itself. People who lack real confidence often feel the need to make themselves seen and heard. They seek approval. They look for constant reassurance. and they measure their worth by the recognition they receive. But those who possess true greatness have moved beyond this need. They are comfortable in their own skin, they trust in their abilities, and they do not fear being overlooked. They know that greatness is not about being the loudest, but about being the most consistent, the most disciplined, the most resilient. This kind of confidence is not built overnight. It comes from years of dedication, from countless hours of practice, from facing failure and rising again without needing an audience to witness the struggle. It is built through quiet perseverance, through the willingness to do what is necessary, even when no one is watching. It is the kind of strength that does not need external validation, because it is already fully established from within. The world often rewards those who make the most noise, who push themselves into the spotlight, who market themselves as the next great thing. But the ones who leave the greatest legacy are rarely the ones who seek attention. They are the ones who let their work, their character, and their impact do the speaking for them. They are the ones who understand that true success is not about being noticed, but about making a difference. There is a reason why silent confidence is so rare. It requires discipline, it requires patience, it requires a deep understanding of oneself and the ability to resist the temptation to prove something to the world. It is not about arrogance, but about humility. The kind of humility that comes from knowing that greatness does not need to be broadcast. It simply is. When you see someone who does not feel the need to boast, who does not seek constant affirmation, who simply moves through life with purpose and poise, you are seeing someone who has built something real. They are not trying to convince anyone of their worth because they already know it. They do not waste energy trying to be seen because they understand that true greatness will always be recognized in time. If you have to remind people you're important, you've already lost. True significance is never declared, it is demonstrated. The moment you feel the need to convince others of your worth, you reveal a deeper insecurity. Those who are truly important do not seek validation because they do not need it. Their actions, their presence, and their impact speak louder than any words ever could. In every sphere of life, there are those who constantly remind others of their influence, their status, or their success. They drop their titles in conversations, they demand recognition, and they measure their worth by how many people acknowledge them. But real greatness does not need to announce itself. A leader who is respected does not need to say, "I am the leader." A person of value does not need to say, "I am valuable." If you must remind people, it means your presence alone is not enough to make them believe it. The loudest proclamations often come from the most insecure people. When someone constantly asserts their importance, it is usually because they feel it slipping away. They fear being overlooked, so they try to reinforce their relevance through words. But this approach is counterproductive. The more someone tries to convince others of their worth, the less believable it becomes. Real influence does not come from talking about it. It comes from embodying it. Consider the individuals who have left a lasting mark on history. They were not the ones who constantly reminded the world of their greatness. They were the ones who simply did the work. They focused on their purpose. They remained consistent. And over time, their impact spoke for them. The most respected figures are the ones who let their legacy build itself, rather than trying to construct it through self-promotion. People instinctively recognize authenticity. They know when someone is truly valuable versus when someone is simply trying to appear valuable. Those who are secure in themselves do not need to manufacture an image. They live in a way that naturally commands respect. But those who are unsure of their own worth rely on external validation, constantly seeking reassurance from others. The irony is that the more someone seeks approval, the less they receive it. When you know who you are, you do not need to prove it. A lion does not need to declare its strength. A wise person does not need to announce their intelligence. A great leader does not need to remind people of their position. These things are evident in how they carry themselves, in how they respond to challenges, in how they treat others. Confidence is silent, insecurity is loud. The strongest individuals are often the quietest about their power. They do not waste time proving their importance because they are too busy living it. They do not argue over respect because they have already earned it through their actions. They do not demand loyalty because people naturally follow those who are worth following. Meanwhile, those who struggle for recognition, who seek to control how others see them, who fear being forgotten, these are the ones who lose the respect they so desperately crave. This is not about being silent or invisible. It is about understanding that true importance is not something you tell people. It is something they recognize on their own. The most influential people do not need to campaign for their influence. They focus on growth, on contribution, on building something real, and as a result, their presence becomes undeniable. If you ever find yourself in a position where you feel the need to remind people of your worth, pause and ask yourself why. If your impact is real, you will not need to say a word. The people who matter will see it for themselves. If they do not, then either they are not the right people, or your actions have not yet spoken loudly enough. Either way, the solution is not to demand recognition, it is to continue proving your value through what you do. The moment you try to convince others of your importance, you have already lost. Because importance is not something you chase. It is something that naturally emerges from the way you live, the way you lead, and the way you serve. In the end, your legacy will not be built by the words you speak about yourself, but by the work you leave behind. True importance is never declared, it is demonstrated. The moment you feel the need to remind people of your worth, you reveal a deeper insecurity. Real influence is not built through self-promotion, but through consistent action, integrity, and purpose. The most respected individuals do not demand recognition, they earn it naturally by living in a way that speaks for itself. If you must convince others that you matter, you have already lost because true significance is never chased, it emerges from the impact you create. Instead of seeking validation, focus on being the person whose presence commands respect effortlessly. Let your actions be your voice, your discipline be your proof, and your legacy be your testimony. When you do that, you will never have to remind people of your worth. They will see it for themselves. Thank you for your time, and may you continue to lead with quiet confidence and true greatness.